everybody, and welcome back to the Eonics Podcast, a podcast about software development, ways of working, and also all kinds of other cool stuff. Today we're here to do another JP Tech Talk, and we have somebody in our studio who has been here a lot of times before. Welcome, Amir. Welcome back.
Hello, JP. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Today we'll be talking about improving productivity as a developer, or at least take a look at all the different features that you can improve on.
Yes.
You have done some research based on something that you saw online. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So it was quite some time ago. I was following some articles on the internet about it was mainly from one famous guy in Java world.
Yep.
And then I end up finding one article how developers could improve their productivity. At the beginning, I was like, okay, this cannot be like a very interesting article. But then when I start reading, I found it quite interesting.
Yeah.
So then that was the starting point for me to start and search and even asking nowadays ChatGPT about how developers
ChatGPT knows about that.
Yeah.
But we do need to be faster than AI these days, right?
Yes.
In order to stay relevant.
That's a very good question.
So then you should not be asking ChatGPT because he is your competitor.
Yeah. But we are no friends, at least. No,
you're not friends. Okay, that's good. I'll write that down. That's great. So you did some research into what can you do. We obviously had a bit of a discussion before this meeting, and I have to say there are quite some surprising things in there. So hit it off.
Yes, let's start with one of the very well-known points, which is about IDE. So as developers, we are mostly working in IDEs, and Java developers 99%. I don't know, but it's not a very accurate number, but it's mostly IntelliJ IDEA.
Yep.
And also VS Code is well used. Is one of the most used IDEs for other languages as well.
Yeah, to me, VS Code is actually the go-to place. I actually like it better than
IntelliJ.
Yes. Yeah, but maybe for Java coding, IntelliJ has some more features, right? It has some more support. But I suppose that using an IDE is good then.
Yes, of course, because text editors can be used, but it's not very productive.
No.
So let's start with shortcuts. So it's always better to use a shortcut instead of clicking, because clicking on items is not very productive.
No.
Apart from not being productive, it consumes more energy, and also it drops your focus when you're focusing on your code. If you want to use the mouse cursor and click on something.
Yeah, I think that is one of the things, to me at least, that takes up most of my time, is like context switching, right? So if you're with your head into a piece of code and then anything pops up, then you're out of that whole thing of, okay, I want to get this fixed. And I can imagine that indeed, if you're going to click something and look up, okay, where can I actually find this kind of feature, then that takes time and takes you out of your thinking process.
Exactly. And then you end up being, where was I?
Exactly. What was I doing again? What shortcut was I looking for?
Yes. And then a wide range of shortcuts can be used. So from editing shortcuts, so very simple things like moving lines.
Yeah.
I think first time I used in IntelliJ, I can move one line in totally like shift line to up and down, and it was very.
Yeah, that does help. I'm quite a big fan of VI and Vim and stuff like that. Yeah. Where you also have, if you don't know the shortcuts, then you're basically fucked.
Yes. And but then there are a wide range of shortcuts that you can use. So, for example, in IntelliJ, you can directly extract a constant.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
right.
and you can extract a method. So you write a method. It's like 20-30 lines of code, but you realize, okay, one part of this method can be another method to increase the readability of the code.
Yep.
You can just select it, and then there's a shortcut to extract a method.
Oh, that's awesome. I actually did not know that.
And also, you write a class, for example, and then you realize, okay, this class, it doesn't follow single responsibility. It's becoming big, and it's doing two things basically.
Yeah.
So you can just select that methods that you want to extract, and then there is a way to extract a class directly.
Okay. Well,
and
this is actually a very, very useful podcast. These kind of things I did not know.
Yes, I found it very effective in a way that imagine the difference. So you select, you right-click new class. What should I do? Then create a constructor and blah blah blah. And
well, obviously there's a lot of work, and then you probably also need to have the references again, because you need to have the functions and the methods. And,
exactly. That does IntelliJ does the whole job for you.
Oh, that's great.
And then my last example from the shortcuts would be just a very typical example when you want to pass the key and the value to a method, but you have them swapped.
Oh yeah,
and
exactly.
Then, yes, and then so you want to you have to select the second one, cut, move it back, and then there is this comma in the wrong place.
Yeah,
you have to,
exactly.
Yes, but there is a you can do option enter flip arguments.
Oh yeah,
that's
really? It's very simple, but it does happen a lot, right? So it probably helps you out. Yeah, to me, encapsulation things is something that I do a lot. Generate constructors, things like that. Also, formatting is you can do that automatically, right? But particularly in VS Code, formatting is not always done properly. So to me, those are the ones that I do use a lot.
Yeah, and they're very effective, and I have one more example. It's because I have used this. So sometimes production doesn't work properly, and you need to do some data fix. And data fix means you need to write SQL queries.
Yes.
And imagine you have like 3 numbers in a row, like ID, name, and another ID.
Yeah.
So out of you have a CSV of this.
Yeah.
And out of this, you want to create like 100 update SQL queries.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have to write update things, and then there are ways to like do horizontal select.
Yeah.
And in one go, you can just paste and add the rest of things in your queries.
Oh, that's great. That's also a shortcut then.
Yes.
Oh, well. And IntelliJ is great. We should have all those shortcuts actually in the references of this podcast.
We can add that.
Yeah, that's cool.
And moving from shortcuts, I think we have talked about features like refactorings. And one experience that I had in the past, because it was COVID time and we did quite a lot of pair programming and even group programming.
Oh, really?
Yes. Like
during COVID?
Because everyone was working from home.
Oh, yeah, so it's easier to do that.
Yes, easier to do. Yeah. And then we learned from each other. So we were always like, wait, how did you do that? And then the other way around. So I was sharing, I spent like 5 minutes to do that. How did you do that? This kind of system.
It's fun, right? It's also nice to learn from each other's tricks.
So that happens quite a lot quite often when you're doing pair programming. And the last item about IDs I would like to mention is extensions. So there are always, for each ID, there are extensions that you can install.
Yeah.
And they help a lot. I have an example in IntelliJ IDEA. There is a string manipulation plugin.
Yeah.
It has 4 million downloads, something.
Oh, that's really a lot.
Yes. And then I use it a lot. For example, imagine you have names in camel case.
Yeah.
Or in Pascal case. And then you want to make it kebab case.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And then if you want to do it by hand, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But then you can just select, double shift to kebab case, and that's it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so
these things, if you, it's actually like that with VI, right? If you don't know what you're doing, it takes like a shitload of time to change a text file. But if you know all the shortcuts, it can be very fast.
Very fast. Yeah, then you don't need to copy or use this AI things. You just can do it.
All right, great. Yep. Moving from the ID.
Moving from the ID, I would like to mention about automate your tasks.
Yeah.
So it's all about automating tasks, and think for me it's like this. If I found myself repeating a manual task, then I think, okay, there is a space for improvement here. And I have an example. So imagine for some daily task, you get one ID, is a correlation ID or session ID, and you need to check some logs for that. So manual, let's first go with the manual approach. Open browser, open a new tab, open Kibana link, and then write a Kibana query, paste that ID into that query. This is log number 1, and then you might need another queries, and then this could take you 10-15 minutes.
All right.
And then if you want to do some automation, so there are tools like Alfred, there are many free alternatives also. You can just script this and say, show me logs for this ID, and then this Alfred opens browser,
actually it is just like RPA tooling, just doing all the clicking for you.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's some
really
of them
great.
they can do more than clicking. They can execute the scripts.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And another kind of automating task, another way of automating task is just use bookmarks. And this is, I think, something mostly for consultants or freelancers, because they switch from one project to another project.
Yeah.
And every time you switch, it takes time for you to okay, can you give me the questions like, can you give me the Jira link, and can you give me the GitHub link or GitLab link? And there is always there's always stored somewhere, or you can ask your colleagues, can you export your bookmarks and share with me? Then it happens very fast, so you have everything and you don't need to ask them.
Yeah, that's actually very smart, because I think we've all been there, right?
Yes.
In that situation, and it's always like, oh my God, I missed it again. Maybe I should look it up in Slack or wherever I got the answer, right? Exactly.
So this would be one of the automated tasks for being onboarded to a project. So of course, you can modify the bookmark that you get in the way that you prefer, but it can help you to reduce a bit about stress in first days in a project.
Yeah, I think that onboarding is the part where there's the least amount of productivity, right? So onboarding often takes such a long time.
Exactly, and the onboarding could be complicated.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
And I don't know, do we have time for another example, or we can move on?
We do have some time. If we don't, then I'll just interrupt you and say thank you for the podcast. Goodbye.
And I have another example. I have another example about automating tasks. So in my current project, I realized that every time we deploy one new version of our apps, we have to go through 4 or 5 repositories and update the version of the app in our deployment descriptor.
All right.
And put that links about our commits somewhere, because it's all about processes.
Yeah, you need to create a package with all the versions or something like that.
Yes,
exactly.
And it was like, to me, and it's very error prone. So I messed up with 3.5. What was the version? And I spent a couple of hours and I created a bash script. So it uses Git, and you just give it the name of your app that you want to deploy and the version, and that's it. And it goes to all the repositories.
These things are great.
Yeah. Yes, and then it was the team was very happy with that, and we are massively using it. So it's another example of.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things, right? So sometimes you feel like, oh my God, do I need to spend that couple of hours to improve? But it's almost always pays off, particularly if it's a longer time project.
So moving forward about other areas of improving productivity, I think you mentioned about AI.
Yes, I think, particularly for me at least, I'm often in the field of doing some coding in a language that I don't really understand up to the level that, for example, I know Java. So recently I've been doing quite a bit of Python, and there's many situations that in the past I would go to Google and say, okay, so I have this situation, how do I do it? And then I get to all kinds of websites, and well, oftentimes it's not really the right answer. But these days I just go to ChatGPT and it's okay, write me an algorithm that, or how do I do blah, blah, blah. And the answers are always, well, not always, but like 95% of the times it's like a good answer that I can modify a bit and then use directly, which is really, really saving me a lot of time.
Yes, that's actually a very good example of using AI. Yep. I think it's not there to use for like writing, like implementing requirements, but for such a task like you mentioned, where I want this pattern, I would like to like a regex or a cron.
Exactly. Yeah. To me, for utility classes or utility methods, right, yes. To do something that takes input blah 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 and gives me output something else. Like yes. That's nice. Algorithms is nice, but it needs to be a very small area, right? So it can be complicated. But you should be able to explain it in like a couple of sentences, and then, well, you typically get an answer. It's like, oh wow, that's pretty good.
Yes, exactly, and you can save your time and energy on something more important, right? Yeah, exactly. Instead of splitting a string to something and returning, finding some patterns in a string. Yes. So moving forward, and I think one of the important things is build your soft skills, and there are many different items in soft skills, but I would like to mention first time management. It's always important, I think, to find the most productive hours of yours.
Yes.
We were talking, I think for me and you, it's morning, but...
Yeah, I always try to do, the more complicated things like writing document. To me, that always, if I do that in the morning, it's like I can do it in half an hour. And if I do it in the afternoon, it takes hours and hours because my mind is wandering all the time. And that doesn't help. And the same goes for coding.
For me, it's like that. And when I try to do something when I'm not fully up to it, and then I end up finding issues that doesn't exist.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So for me it's like this. So time management is very important, and there are some tools even you can import for a couple of days your input, like I spend this time in meeting, I spend this time, and then it could give you a report what is the best time for you to have the meetings and what is the best time for you to...
So how does it determine that? So what does the tool use for input? Do you need to give it yourself, or is it just monitoring your behavior on your computer?
I think it's not that smart. So
that would be great, right? If it's just monitor me. Also take a look at my eyes. If they start wondering, I'm not doing so well.
When I check my Facebook, for example.
Exactly. If I start checking LinkedIn all the time, you're not doing well.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
And one more thing that I would like to mention apart from time management is critical thinking. It is a topic that I am recently very interested in. And I think it could be very useful for developers as well. I can give you an example, like in one of the projects, we developed a feature and we tested it, unit test, integration test, and it's working.
Yeah. And
then we had a tester, so we deployed to a test environment and it was tested and passed the test. And then there was someone from other teams wanted this feature to be deployed somewhere else in another environment. And then we start getting an error, something like, so sorry for going too technical, but so it was started to we start to see text HTML is not the right application type header.
Yeah.
In the REST calls.
Okay.
So it's supposed to be application JSON, but it was saying text HTML is not supported. And then people start to look into the code, but then there was the if you think wisely, so this was passed, and the type of the REST endpoint doesn't change when we have tested in a component test, you have tested in test environment.
Yeah.
So there could be something else. So the resolution was that because of some network connection, it cannot reach, and somehow network transfers this error to something that was being interpreted as a text HTML.
Oh, right. Right.
So this kind of critical thinking. So if it is tested in one environment, and if the error is something like it's text HTML doesn't work, like is not accepted, so it is application JSON.
Yeah.
So something else should be the issue. So
yeah, exactly. It helps to be able to to follow the logic. Right?
To follow the logic, yes. And I think these, I don't know what could be the other examples, but I wanted to mention this. This is very helpful for developers to improve. I think.
These kind of things to me also is what helps me if I have a problem that I feel so vague is just tell somebody, right? Doesn't really matter who. If it's my mother or my wife, right, who doesn't really know anything about coding, if I just tell her, listen, so I've been getting into this problem and I really don't understand. And typically what happens is like, because I'm telling it, it's like, but wait a minute. Maybe it could be that. Oh, thank you.
Exactly. That's like you made a very good point, and I think this way I do it a lot when I'm stuck with something. I just talk to someone. Maybe that the person is not technical at all, but I think somehow it's reactive or way of thinking.
Yeah, it does work like that,
yes.
Right? Somehow it triggers something in your mind that you can get there by just going through the steps or something like that. I think that's really funny. I think to me as well, taking breaks at the right times is also very important, right? If you get stuck too much, particularly when we're losing the light. Yes, it's back.
It's back.
I think that particularly when you were stuck with a problem, my way of doing things, particularly when I was a bit younger, I just want to get it done, right? Just get into it and more into it and do more research and start typing and do whatever. And I think that typically it really helps to just step away for a moment. Just have a drink with a colleague, have a talk, just relax for a moment, stare out of the window and then come back to it. And then typically it's like, oh, right.
That was it.
I was a stupid moron. Why could I not see that before?
Exactly.
All right. I think we've had a lot of topics here. Did we forget anything from your really extensive list?
I think there are some other items that, as you mentioned before the start, we can put this document, attach this document to the link to this podcast. And I have to mention these items are collected from some websites that you can find the references.
Yeah, that would be nice. So if we put it, then people can read it. I think that my takeaway from this is that, so if you want to have like a big improvement in productivity, there's not one single thing that you can do, right? It's all those minor things that help you save a couple of minutes, maybe a couple of minutes a day, or like a short percentage.
Small improvements.
Exactly. But if you add all of these improvements up, then you probably be maybe twice as productive as you were before. So that really is making a difference. So it helps to invest in some skills, in learning the shortcuts.
I have to say it's a very good investment.
Yeah, exactly. So now that you know all this, you're probably very fast right now.
No.
You need to charge a higher rate for your work.
That can't.
Yeah, exactly. I would just call the manager and tell him, listen. As compared to the start, Amir is now twice as productive, so we'll just double the rate, okay? He will go with that.
Yes.
All right, Amir.
You can give it a try.
Thank you very much for your time and for doing the research and for sharing all this information with us, and particularly also with me. So I've learned something today, which is great.
Thank you very much, JP, for having me here. It was a nice podcast.
Yes, it was. All right, everybody, thank you for listening. If you're interested in these kind of podcasts, you can also follow us on the different channels. For now, take care for today, and we'll talk later.
Bye.